Welcome. We're just waiting for other attendees to join in before we start so that you don't miss out of the cross of this webinar series. You can send your comments and contributions to the chat box, questions to the Q&A box. Whilst we wait for others, just to appreciate you for joining us today and to appreciate all those that have joined us over the past couple of months from Dcsl series 1 to 19. This is the last series for this year, and we want to say thank you for joining us. Try to stay within the time so that we don't run up that time. I guess we can start with preliminaries. Others will join us along the way. Okay, so once again, I welcome you to the 19th webinar series, Teams Reporting and Compliance Requirements under the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2019. Brought to you by Dcsl Corporate Services Limited. We have in audience today directors, company secretaries, lawyers, and compliance officers, and persons who are just seeking to better understand the reporting and compliance requirements under the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance. The Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2019 adopts a principle-based approach specifying minimum standards of practice that companies should adopt. Companies are required to adopt the apply and explain approach in reporting on compliance with the code, which assumes the application of all principles and requires entities to explain how the principles are applied in the organization. To lead the discourse this morning, we have a distinguished subject matter expert, Dr. Nelson Anumaka, the Director, Head Directorate of Corporate Governance at the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria. Before I hand over proceedings to our facilitator to begin the session, I urge us to leave our comments and contributions in the chat box and questions in the Q&A box. So for those who don't know who we are at Dcsl, I'll just take a moment to share my screen. Okay, so who we are. Dcsl, formerly known as Deloitte Corporate Services Limited, with our core competencies is governance, company sectorial, immigration, training, and executive selection services. We operate from our head office in Lagos here, and we have an operational branch in Abuja. Our vision is to be the preferred corporate services provider in Nigeria. Our mission is pursuit of excellence in service delivery. These are our core values, and we'll just go through what we do at Dcsl. We have the Dcsl Academy that provides training services such as this webinar series. We have Dcsl Law that provides business advisory and regulatory compliance services, governance, company sectorial, and executive selection. These Dcsl Academy services are as follows: open enrollment trainings and seminars, bespoke trainings for directors and senior management. We also provide director development programs and induction, board retreat sessions, strategy sessions, offshore trainings, roundtables, and other programs. So if you need any services relating to this, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Here is the program flow for today. I've done the opening. I'm Olabisi Ladele, member of the Dcsl Academy team. I'll then proceed to introduce the facilitator to us. I'll then go through his profile very quickly. Dr. Nelson Anumaka is a fellow of both the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria and Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. He is also a Chartered Secretary and Administrator, as well as a Chartered Public Finance Accountant. He obtained a bachelor's degree in business administration from University of Benin, an MBA from University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and a DBA from SSBM, Switzerland. Has had a robust career in the banking sector. I would not go through his entire profile, but just to let us know that he's currently the Director at Directorate of Corporate Governance at FRCN, and he has played very active roles in development and issuance of accounting standards in Nigeria. So because he's a subject matter expert, we know that we'll gain a lot from this session. Without wasting any more time, we'll just go straight to session. Dr. Nelson Anumaka, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Hoping that our discussions today will be beneficial to all of us, and we'll get something to get home. And then December is approaching, where a lot of companies have their financial year ends, and you know you are expected to turn in your corporate governance reports before 30th of March next year. So I think this subject will be very good for those who are compliance officers and company secretaries and officers alike that will handle the filling of those forms. I'm asked to talk on reporting and compliance requirements under the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018. Just give you a guide and the tips, especially on handling the reporting of the forms. So this is the course contents. We'll go by introduction, by philosophy of our code, then the reporting requirements, the sectorial guidelines. We talk about compliance requirements too, and then we move into timelines and expectations. And we now go into the main dish, which is the reporting template. And of course, we discuss some challenges that we have seen so far. And then we conclude. The Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance, as you know, was unveiled by January 15th, 2019 by the Vice President and the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment.
Dr.
Yes,
Anumaka, please, could you put your slide in the presentation mode so that we can see it clearly? Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
Right. Yep. Sure. Are we seeing it?
Not yet, sir.
Are you seeing it now? Hello?
You can continue, sir.
Okay. So it encompasses institutional and legal regulatory frameworks that address the major corporate governance challenges that come into focus at the time of global financial crisis. And given the mandate of FRC to ensure that multiple corporate governance codes in Nigeria are harmonized, thus we now have a national and rational framework that meets the baseline for OECD principles and corporate governance best practices. It provides unique opportunity to drive high quality governance arrangements and through the principles, the 28 principles and recommended practices. It provides a common national taxonomy and language for corporate governance and it has become effective, and all hands should be on deck for its successful implementation. That's why I say today is a good day for us, because all hands should be on deck. By next month, we'll start preparing for the reports. So the companies should report on the application of the code in annual reports for the period ending on or after January 1, 2020. And it's important to inform all of us that all space sector codes had ceased to exist. We do no longer have another code except this code. Every other thing we may have is in form of corporate governance guidelines that deals with some sector-specific, unique or prudential matters, which is also approved by Financial Reporting Council. So what it helps us is that it institutionalizes the highest standards of corporate governance best practices in Nigeria, rather than the confused states we had where we have multiplicity of codes in Nigeria. It helps to promote public awareness and will also rebuild public trust and confidence in the Nigerian economy, thus facilitating trade and investment and also attracting foreign direct investments. We look at the philosophy of the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018. It adopts the apply and explain philosophy. And what this means is that the application of the principles is assumed and that an explanation is disclosed on the practices that have been implemented and the progress made towards governance outcomes. Let's ask ourselves, why did we choose apply and explain philosophy? You know, there is comply or explain, comply and explain, apply or explain, but we chose apply and explain. Why? The major reason was to avoid box ticking exercise, so that whatever you have put down, you must explain what it is, and it will allow for judgments in your application of the recommended practices and the principles itself. And the template you have on hand, which you are going to begin to fill after December next month, is designed in such a way that entities can provide robust explanations for the application of the principles and the recommended practice. So what it means is that, or what we derive from the philosophy of the code is that entities are expected to apply each of the 28 principles and the 247 recommended practices of the code. And the recommended practices provide the modalities for achieving those principles. And NCCG 2018 allows for application of other practices, because within the 247 recommended practices, they all may not be applicable to your organization. There may also be a practice that your organization wants to so do, and in order to achieve their objectives, it's allowed. But what matters is that you must explain. And that is why the code is a principle-based code, not a rule-based code. It's a principle-based code. That's why it allows for application of other practices that are not even embedded in the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018. Now, let's talk about the reporting requirements. Remember, the topic is reporting and compliance requirements. If we look at the minister's regulation that reinforces the validity of this code, it says reporting on NCCG will be with effect from January 1, 2020. But because of COVID-19 pandemic, we had to give some forbearances on the reporting line. That was why we extended it to July, up until July 2020. We also followed it up by issuing a press release on the 28th of May, 2020, in order to communicate the reporting modality. And that press release is still available for download on Financial Reporting Council's website. You know, the website is www.financialreportingcouncil.gov.ng. You can download it and do what you want to do on the press release. So the reporting on Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance is to be done by completing the reporting templates, which also can be downloaded from FRC website for now, because right now we are actually releasing a web portal where this template will be hosted, so that in the meantime, we are required to download and complete the template. And the copies of your completed templates, you have to forward it to the your relevant sector regulator. If you're an insurance company, it goes to Bank, it goes to CPF, and so on. Then if you are listed in any exchange, you also have to send a copy. And of course, you must send a copy to Financial Report Council at, for now, FOOKEDIRON Fookediron at financialreportingcouncil.gov.ng, or submit at NCCG 2018 reporting at financialreportingcouncil.gov.ng. If those two websites, you'll be able to handle one if you can get the other. Now let's talk a little bit about Sectorial guidelines. The 28 principles and the 247 recommended practices that are embedded in Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018 are minimum standards of practice, which companies must adopt. So NCCG 2018 does not address all corporate governance matters specific to each sector of the Nigeria economy. So what we agreed was the various sectorial codes of corporate governance had all been withdrawn. And what we have done is to replace them with sectorial governance guidelines for each sector. We did it in tandem with each of the relevant sectors: CBN, NICOM, PENCOM, NCC, and SEC. So all of them have what we call sectoral governance guidelines, and they will be implemented along with the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018. The monitoring and enforcement of the 200 NCCG 2018 will be done by FRC through the sector regulators. If you read itself, it's embedded, the code will be monitored and enforced by Financial Reporting Council through the sector regulators. So sector regulators may choose to sanction you for non-compliance with the provisions of Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018 and their guidelines. And following from the above, sector are fully involved in the reporting and compliance of Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018. The sector regulators are fully involved. They were also involved in development of these templates that we are talking about. Every of those sector regulators were represented in that committee. There was a web portal committee after the code was unveiled. The portal committee, in fact, I chaired that committee, and every member of the sectors were represented, and other allied institutions were represented. So nobody will say he was not part of it. So the template we are saying is an embodiment of all the knowledge we gathered from the sector regulators and allied institutions who have something to do with corporate governance as a framework. So the completed templates will be sent to the regulators, and FRC and the sector regulators. For example, if you're a bank, FRC and BN are responsible for reviewing your submitted templates. And FRC will always liaise with that sector regulator for identified non-compliance issues. So if there are non-compliance issues, they are to be handled jointly by FRC and your sector regulators. In terms of compliance requirements, there is this certification of the completed templates. Every template must be certified by the 4 of the following officers: the chairman of the board of directors, the managing director, chief executive officer, and the chairman of the committee responsible for nomination and governance. And of course, the company secretary or the chief compliance officer, as the case may be for any company. These 4 individuals must endorse any template that we are submitting. And as stipulated in that code, in Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance, we collaborated with the sector regulators to issue those guidelines. And by implication, what it means is that reporting entities will be required to comply with the NCCG 2018 and also their relevant sectoral corporate governance guidelines. Their sector guidelines is like a supplement to the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance. That's why in some of them, you see them from less than 5. That's those things that we could not accommodate in Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018 that are very specific to their relevant sectors, we are now put together as guidelines. Therefore, reporting shall also be made with regards to the 2 of them. That is Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance and their guidelines. And if you check that press release, we gave timelines which must be strictly adhered. But for the benefit of this program, the reporting timeline is also reproduced here. If we look at this now, we are talking about 31st January last year, which means it is July. Remember I told you we gave forbearance. But if it is for this year, for example, if we go for January, your accounting year is December this year, 2021. What it means is that by 30th April, you must submit your templates, your completed templates. Then if your year end is February, you are expected to submit by May, and so on and so forth. So if you know when yours is, your financial year is, you should be able to know that it's about 3 months gap to enable you to fill the form and submit it. Now, reporting expectations. We expect that you must report that whether or not the recommended practices has been applied. So we expect entities to state whether or not the recommended practices have been applied. And regardless of any answer to the above, you must give explanations. You must give explanations. And that is why the philosophy of the code is apply and explain. So whether it is yes or no, you must explain. It is not apply or explain. It is apply and explain. So if the response is yes, an explanation of how it was achieved is expected. If the response is no, explanation is also required on why it was not achieved and the alternative steps taken, if any. So the implementation of the philosophy will not be complete when in your application, there is no explanation. So when you make an application, you must make an explanation. So your submission will not be complete when application is made and the explanations are not provided. I want you to bear it in mind. Now, this is the rules place, the fundamentals of the reporting templates. Like I said before, it was developed by the Web Portal Committee that was constituted by Financial Reporting Council, and the membership included all sector regulators and allied institutions. Then it serves as the instrument for reporting compliance with NCCG 2018 by entities. It is also used by Financial Reporting Council and regulators in assessing the level of compliance by your company with the NCCG 2018 and the sectoral guidelines. So what the template is like, it is intended to be like a smart form. In fact, it's a smart form which you can access from the web portal when fully developed. But for now, like I told you, you can go to the website and download it. It's still a smart form which you can close your eyes and fill in. But we intend also that when the web portal is ready, it will not only host this reporting template. Our envision is that it will serve as a reservoir of corporate governance materials. So wherever or whichever country best practice we get, we will put it on that web portal so that it will be for general reading and absorption by all and sundry. So that in future, when the code is to be reversed, we can bring in some relevant modern knowledge on corporate governance. So that web portal will not only host the template, it will also host materials. In fact, even some of you will be able to submit materials from your sections. So the highlight of the sections of the reporting template is that we have section A, which is introduction, section B, general information, section C talks about attendance at meetings of the board and board committees. Section D talks about senior management of the company. Section E is the main core, the application of the 2018 Code of Corporate Governance. And then section F is the certification. Remember, we have said it before, there are 4 groups of people that will certify it. We will still see it again. Section A talks about introduction of the code and the template, and it just gives instructions on how to complete it. And it advises that you should read the instructions very carefully, and that every line item and indicator must be completed. Every line item and indicator must be completed. And you must respond to each question with yes, where you have applied the principle, and no, where you are yet to apply the principle. You will also show explanations on how you are applying the principle, or otherwise, you should be included as part of your response. It is important to let all of us know that not applicable, because we are used to say N/A, but in this case, not applicable, N/A is not a valid response. You must respond. That is why the code is apply and explain. Whether you have applied or you have not applied, you must explain. Don't tell us not applicable. Say not applicable, then you have not done what you are supposed to do. Now let's go to section B, which captures information relating to the profile of the company. And there are simple data you can get out from your files: the company name, date of incorporation, your RUC number, license number if you are a bank or a mining company or a telecom company. You put your license number, your company physical address, your website address, your financial year end, whether your company is a group or a holding company, name and address of your company secretary. The reason is that company secretary is usually the pivot on corporate governance practices in various companies. The name and address of your external auditors, the name and address of your registrars, your company registrars, and of course, the email and phone number of your investor relations officer or contact person whom investors can always contact. All these people are within the parties to corporate governance. That's why you can see they are carefully listed here. Section C talks about the board and the company and its attendance at meetings. And it's divided into two sections. One talks about board details, and the other section talks about attendance at board and committee meetings. You can see the details of the board of the company and attendance at meetings. There is this serial number, number 1. Naturally, it will be the chairman of the company. You put the name, Veronica, Mrs. Veronica Ajayi, designation, chairman, gender, female, date of first appointed or elected, you will know. As the compliance officer or the company secretary, we know. Then if there's any remark, especially in terms of directors who are changed within the financial year, that's where this remark plays its own role. You know, some whose tenure may have expired within the year, say June, and then somebody else is elected to take his position, that's where this remark is. Maybe you now say this person retired on so date. This person was appointed on so date. Then attendance at board and board committee meetings. Serial number the same way, name of board members. The number of board meetings held in the reporting year. Usually the law or the code and even the comma says a minimum of 4, which is like, but some hold about 6. So the number of the meetings held in the reporting year, even if it's 4 or 6, you put it there. Then the number of meetings attended by the director himself. You might not likely attend all. If you did 3, you put 3. You did, because all these will be used in his appraisal, especially when they are doing board evaluation and corporate governance evaluation. The membership of the board committees. You will know the board committees of the directors belong. A designation of that is the member or chairman of the board committee. The same way, the number of committee meetings held in the reporting year. And then the next column is the number of committee meetings attended by each of those directors. That's about section C. Section D details about senior management of the company. So we just need information about the senior management officers of the company. And you know, it's from the managing director, chief executive officer, down the line. So you put the serial number 1, name, Nelson Anumaka, position held, MD, CEO, gender, male. All this information you see that they are going to put here They are all relevant in corporate governance practices. Like these ones can also be used during appraisals, corporate governance appraisals. All right. It might be possible even at the board level to know how many females are on the board or on the senior management. You can determine the ratio, whether it is right or wrong. And then whoever is doing it, even if it's an external consultant, you should be able to advise. Section E is where the work on the template are domiciled. And I've attempted to bring out some hypothetical examples on the way and manner you will go about to fill them. So each of the 28 principles are laid bare in this section, from number 1 to 28. Then the reporting questions, testing, application, and compliance with the related recommended practices are in this section. There is also a column for explanation on application or deviation. And where there is a deviation from the recommended practices, an explanation is also to be provided on how the company has been able to meet the objectives. In fact, by the time you go through this template, it's as good as board evaluation done. Amongst the hypothetical example I took, I say principle 1, the role of the board. You know, in NCCG 2018, it says a successful company is headed by an effective board, which is responsible for providing entrepreneurial and strategic leadership, as well as promoting ethical culture and responsible corporate citizenship. As a link between stakeholders of and the company, the board is to exercise oversight and control to ensure that management acts in the best interest of the shareholders and other stakeholders, while sustaining the prosperity of the company. That's what principle 1 on that code states. Now, the reporting questions arising from it are these. Does the board have an approved charter which sets out its responsibilities and terms of reference? You are required to say yes or no. And it says, if it is yes, when was it last reviewed? This is the hypothetical answer I have put here on explanation. You say yes, what it means that the board have approved charter. And I went ahead to explain. You remember they said, whether it is yes or no, you must explain. I said the board has an approved charter which sets out the responsibilities of the board and contains the corporate governance policies and practices. The charter helps the board in providing overall strategic leadership of the company. It also guides the board's oversight function, effective stakeholder management, and growth of the company. Your language must not necessarily be this. That's why I say it's a hypothetical thing. This is my own language. You can do your own, you know English and company secretarial that I do. So you can put it the way it suits you. This is the layman's own that Anubata has just put here, just to guide us. If you remember, the topic says guide and tips. Then the second leg of the question say, if yes, when was it last reviewed? I said the board charter was last reviewed on June 12, 2018, in a bid to commence implementation of the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018. And the company's board charter is reviewed on a regular annual basis. But I want to show you the one that somebody who didn't do well put for us. He said, does the board have an approved charter which sets out its responsibilities and terms of reference? The man answered yes, And that's all, Shikana. Remember the code, the template says you must apply and you must explain. You can see this man, that's why it's marked with red, bad. He didn't explain. And he was asked if yes, when was it last reviewed? He just said the board charter was last reviewed on June 12, 2018. So you can see that it's not doing the right thing. Then I took principle 2, board structure and composition. And what it says, the effective discharge of responsibility of the board and its committee is assured by appropriate balance of skills and diversity, etc. The reporting questions, number 1, says, what are the qualifications and experiences of the directors? You can see my explanation there. I said the directors are appointed to ensure an appropriate balance of skills, qualifications, and experiences. Their profiles are detailed in Appendix 1, Director's Profile, which is attached for your reference. Because I will not be able to, a lot of them have so many qualifications. It might be cumbersome putting it on this. That's why I said, check your Appendix 1, which you will also attach, listing those directors and their qualifications or their profiles. Number 2, does the company have a broad approved diversity policy? Yes or no? If yes, to what extent have the diversity targets been achieved? And what we said here, I said yes, they have. There is a broad approved diversity policy, which covers diversity in knowledge, skills, experience, age, culture, and gender, geared towards promoting better decision-making and effective governance. Like I said before, your English may be better than mine. But this is a guide or a tip, so you can change it, provided you are answering the question put to you. If yes, to what extent? I said the company has been able to achieve diversity targets across different indices to a large extent, as may be deduced from the profile of the directors. When you go to that Appendix 1, you should be able to see how many ladies are on the board. You may be able to see who are the engineers, who are the accountants, who is from the north, who is from the east. You will see somebody who is 68 years, you will see somebody who is 35 years, and all that and all that. All right? But like I said, this is a hypothetical answer. Three, on the same principle, you say, are there directors holding concurrent directorships? Yes or no? And if yes, state names of the directors and the companies. I said yes. 2 of our directors hold concurrent directorships in other organizations, which have been appropriately disclosed to the board. Their concurrent directorships have been considered and will not affect their responsibilities and effectiveness on the company's board. I went ahead to say the directors involved are, these are hypothetical names, please, so that if there's coincidence, forgive me. Mr. Taiwo Kehinde, Interstate Company PLC. Mrs. Agnes Ibe, NCCG Communications Limited. These are the just simple explanations they are requiring. Reporting question number 4 on the same principle says, is the managing director, CEO, or an executive director a chair of any board committee? Yes or no? If yes, provide the names of the committee. My answer is no. For independence, the board charter prohibits the managing director, CEO, and the executive directors from being chair of any of the board committees. However, executive directors could be members of the risk management committee. Remember, risk management committee is an all-comers committee. But the other 3 musketeer committees, nominations through governance, remunerations to compensation committee and audit committee. Those are no-go areas for MDs and EDs because they cannot determine their wages, they cannot recruit themselves, and they cannot audit their work. You can see what my compatriot has failed in his own case. I say, what are the qualifications and experience of directors? He said, see the attached document. Does the company have a board approved diversity policy? Yes or no? He said, yes. If yes, to what extent have the diversity targets been achieved? He said, the company is gender sensitive. You can see how sweeping his responses are. That's why we are marking it bad. Are there directors holding concurrent directorship? Yes or no? He said, yes. If he has stated the names of the director, he said Mr. Taiwo in the interstate company, Mrs. Agnes Igbe, NCCG Communication Limited. 4, is the MD CEO and the executive director a chair of any of the board committees? He just said no. And that's all. So you can see this person, you can compare him with myself, who just put in a hypothetical example. You will see that the difference is 7 up. The difference is clear. Now, because I know that a lot of secretaries are here, I went into Principle 8, which talks about company secretary. And he said the company secretary supports the effectiveness of the board by assisting the board and management to develop good corporate governance practices and culture within the company. And number 1 reporting question on secretaries is like this. Is the company secretary in-house or outsourced? I answered, the company secretary is in-house. If it's outsourced, you can say the company secretary is outsourced and is chartered secretary limited or PLC or whatever it is. Number 2, what is the qualification and experience of the company secretary? I said the company secretary qualified as a solicitor and advocate of the Supreme Court of Nigeria in 1992 and holds a Master's of Laws degree. He joined the company in October 2005 as Deputy Company Secretary. He's a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria. He's a fellow of Nigerian Institute of Management, an associate member of both the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria and Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers. Before he or she joined us, he has over 15 years cognate experience in the oil and gas sector after working for 5 years in XYZ and Co partners. Like I said before, these are all hypothetical things I have put here. It's for you to put the real thing. If you have Mr. X or Ms. S as your secretary, you know what qualifications she has, experience she has. But this is a guide and also a tip for you. Who does the company secretary report to? I say the company secretary reports to the board on his functional duties through the board chairman, as well as to the managing director as a member of the company's management on his administrative responsibility. So he reports to the board, but he has a dotted to the managing director, chief executive officer. What is the appointment and removal process of the company secretary? That's the question. The answer is that the appointment of company secretary is based on merit and with selection criteria, emphasizing competence, qualification, and relevant experience relevant to the recruitment process for directors. So she goes through rigorous recruitment process just as much as the directors. And then the removal of the company secretary is based on the provisions of Companies and Allied Matters Act. Please, like I said, these are hypothetical things. You have the real thing there. You fill it in. Number 6, reporting question. Who undertakes and approve the performance appraisal of the company secretary. And I said the board performs an appraisal of the performance of the company secretary as an integral part of the annual board evaluation exercise. So it's the board's responsibility to do the appraisal. This is my friend's own. Is the company secretary in-house or outside? He said yes, that's all. What is the qualification and experience? LLP. Where the company secretary is an employee of the company. Is the person a member of the senior management? He said yes. Who does the company secretary report to? Says the board. What is the appointment and removal process of the company secretary? He said it's appointed and removed by the board. Who undertakes and approves the performance appraisal? He said the board. You can see the difference between these and the hypothetical ones I have done. You can score them by yourself. Principle 10, meetings of the board. I also added it because these are areas the company secretaries and compliance officers are involved. And the code says that meetings are the principal vehicle for conducting the business of the board and successfully fulfilling the strategic objectives of the company. Number one, what is the process for reviewing and approving minutes of the board meetings? I said drafts of minutes of the board meetings are sent to board members ahead of board meetings to afford them the opportunity to carry out a thorough review. Subsequently, the minutes are collectively reviewed and approved by the board at board meetings and signed by the chairman before they are included in the company's minute book. I keep emphasizing this is my own conjecture, it's my own hypothetical thing. You can beautify it, you can modify it just to suit you. Number two, what are the timelines for sending the minutes to directors? I say the minutes of the board meetings are required to be sent to directors with the board papers to the directors 3 weeks before the next scheduled meeting. This is also a peculiar thing to your entity or your company. Some company may say 2 weeks. It depends on you. I just put 3 weeks here. What are the implications for directors who do not meet the company policy on meeting attendance? I said a director's eligibility to be elected to the board could be impacted if they repeatedly fail to attend meetings without justifiable reasons. Like I told you, this template is as good as board evaluation, board and senior management evaluation. And look at what my friend is saying. What is the process of reviewing and approving minutes of the board? It's the minutes of the meetings are sent to the board members ahead of board meetings. What are the timelines? It said 3 weeks. What are the implications? Say the man is not eligible for the election. You can see the difference. Principle 18, internal audits. An effective internal audit function provides assurance to the board on the effectiveness of governance, risk management, and internal control system. And the reporting questions are these. Number one, does the company have an internal audit function? Yes or no? If no, how has the board obtained adequate assurance on the effectiveness of internal processes and systems? I said they have. The company has an internal audit function which provides assurance by assessing the reporting on the effectiveness of governance, risk management, and control processes. If they don't have, I said the company engaged an outsourcing professional firm, ABC and Co., to provide assurance services. The profile of ABC and Co. is attached for your reference. This is also applicable to company secretaries. Where you don't have them in-house, this is the way you are expected to answer. 3 or 2, sorry. Does the company have a board-approved internal audit charter? Yes or no? I said yes. The charter sets out the nature of services that internal audit will provide and how internal audit will help the organization to achieve its objectives. 3, is the head of internal audit a member of senior management? Yes or no? I said the head of internal audit function is a senior management who is a professional in his field. 4, what is the qualification and experience of the head of internal audit? I said the head of internal audit is a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, the Institute of Internal Auditors of Nigeria, and other relevant professional bodies. He has over 15 years of professional experience in financial control and audit. You can add to all the 5, does the company have a board-approved annual risk-based internal audit plan? Yes or no? I said yes. The company has an approved risk-based internal audit plan, which aims to provide assurance to the board that risk management processes are managed effectively in relation to its risk appetites. 6, does the head of the internal audit function report at least once every quarter to the committee responsible for audit on the adequacy and effectiveness of management, governance, risk and control environment, deficiencies observed, and management mitigation plans? Yes or no? I said the head of internal audit function reports quarterly to the committee responsible for audit on the adequacy and effectiveness of management, governance, risk and control environment, deficiencies observed, and management mitigation plans. He also monitors improvements on issues earlier reported on. Like I said, you can embellish what you are seeing today. 7, is there an external assessment of the effectiveness of internal audit function at least once every 3 years by a qualified independent reviewer appointed by the board? Yes or no? If yes, when was the last assessment? I say yes, there is. The company has a policy of assessing the effectiveness of internal audit function at least once every 3 years by a qualified independent reviewer appointed by the board. And I said the last assessment was done in July 2019 by XYZ Professional Services, who were appointed by the board for that purpose. 8, who undertakes and approves the performance evaluation of the head of internal audit? The evaluation of the internal audit function is done by the committee responsible for audit, who in turn lays it to the full board. And let's see what my friend has put down here. Does the company have an internal audit function? Yes or no? You say yes, there is an internal audit function. If no, how has the board obtained adequate assurance? He said by an outsourced firm. Does the company have a board-approved internal audit charter? He just said yes. Is the head of internal audit a member of senior management? Yes or no? He said not applicable. Remember, we had already warned that we cannot accept not applicable. What is the qualification and experience of head of an internal audit? He said not applicable. Does the company have a board-approved annual risk-based internal audit plan? He said yes. Does the head of internal audit function report at least once every quarter? He said yes. Is there an external assessment of the effectiveness of the internal audit? He said yes. If yes, when was the last assessment? He said October 2019. Who undertakes and approves the internal audits appraisal? He said the committee responsible for audits. So that brings us to virtually the examples I can bring in here. The rest are for you. You know better than I do, I think. And section F of that is just the certification. Like we have said before, they have to make their declaration in good faith and confirm that the information they have provided is true. So the chairman of the board of directors will sign, put his name, signature, and dates, The chairman of the committee responsible for governance will also do the same. The MD CEO will do the same. Then the company secretary or the compliance officer will also do the same. Now, the challenges so far, because we have done it for about 18 months and more, and we discovered that there are a few challenges here and there, necessary that we bring it to your notice so that you adjust yourselves. Because in the completion of the reporting templates by entities, we discovered that a lot of them were like box ticking exercise, like what my other person was doing. Yes or no, he says yes. It's just the same is as good as box ticking. And we discovered that nearly all the entities did not comply with this philosophy of apply and explain. A lot of companies did not so do. Then explanations for application or deviation from the principles and recommended practice were not provided as expected. Like what my friend was doing, you can see in his explanation, it wasn't as robust, it wasn't as educative as enough to tell or to convince a third party on what the company is worth. Several companies answered either yes or no without any explanation or documentation. Like you saw when I say go to Appendix 1, most of those things, even the charter, you just attach the charter. It doesn't remove anything from anybody. Then some companies left a lot of the reporting questions unanswered. And what does this do? It leaves us, who are the reviewers, to believe that either the subject matter does not apply to that company, or they do not have documents or structures in place for it. Otherwise, why would you leave a lot of those questions unanswered? Because the code says from principle 1 to 28 is embedded in that template, and you are expected to answer. Then these are other dimensions of the challenges, where some companies have peculiar features, and some of them even had to write, and we wrote back to them, answered them. Because either their special features include that they are primary listed on the foreign stock exchange, and that their secondary listing is in Nigeria, and that their parent company is domiciled outside Nigeria, but with presence here, and that they are obligated to comply with code of corporate governance of other countries or country of their primary listing. It does not bother us because there are laws of the federation in this country. Before you enlist as a company in this country, you must have passed through the Corporate Affairs Commission. And so long as registered or you are incorporated through companies and allied matters, CAMA, you must abide by the laws of the federation. Therefore, all these ones are no excuses. And we have written back to a few of them that has written, saying that they are not covered by the code just because they are listed foreign. So that you cannot be a foreign listed company while you are operating in Nigeria. So long as CAC gave you registration, you must abide by our rules. You can do our own, you can do for your parent company or your holding company or wherever your company is domiciled, you can do for them, but you must do Nigerian code. So let us conclude. And I say that the implementation and reporting is evolving. And that's why we are having some challenges for now. But we expect that from this December onwards, we may not find a lot of issues because people have learned. So it is expected that we must find issues and challenges regarding compliance Nobody is an impersonal of knowledge, and nobody is perfect. And when a new thing is evolved like that, it's expected. So we are optimistic that as the implementation and reporting advances, the compliance learning curve will progressively improve. That's why I'm very hopeful that from this December, the reporting will be good. Let reporting and compliance with Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance and the sectorial guidelines be a culture and climate of consistency, responsibility, accountability, fairness, transparency, and effectiveness that should be deployed throughout the corporate world, especially in our client, which is Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I draw the curtain here. I thank you so much for your rapt attention. I am here, and the moderator will let us know where we go. I will answer your question. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you very, very much, sir, Dr. Anumaka. That was very insightful. We've learned so much that it's not enough to just say yes or no. We have to provide explanation, and not applicable is no longer allowed. It's no longer acceptable. We've received a couple of questions, and I will urge other attendees to please drop your questions in the Q&A box so that we can bring it to the attention of our facilitator. I will just run through a few of the questions that we have received. So we have a question here from Umar Mukhtar, and it says, please, from which grade level does senior management position start for the purpose of NCCJ reporting? From which grade level would we say somebody is a senior management member for the purpose of reporting?
All right. That's an omnibus question. Senior management in entity 1 may not be senior management in entity 2. But what we have said is that if you are a senior management, depending on how it is categorized in your sector or in your industry, we did not benchmark it to anything because a lot of companies have various nomenclatures for their senior management.
Yeah.
So it's up to you to delineate where your management begins in your companies. I know even in some oil companies, senior management supervisor, but in most companies, senior management begins like from assistant general manager or assistant director, the nomenclature of the company. So the code did not specify a particular nomenclature, but it is up to you as a company to decide where your senior management starts. I hope I have answered that question.
Yes, sir, very well, sir. We have another question here from Femi, and the question is that at the beginning of the 2021 financial year, SEC required that the NCCG report of an entity whose accounting reference period is 31st December should be submitted on 31st January instead of 31st March. This brought about a lot of inconsistencies and lack of clarity. In view of this, what steps has FIRS taken to ensure that reporting timelines of SEC and FIRS are same to avoid further occurrence? So when SEC is asking that the timeline should be 31st of January and FRC is saying this is 31st of March, what does the entity do in this situation, sir?
Thank you very much. We harmonized all these things. SEC was part of the template, and we said, because they used to have what they call Form 01 or whatever, and that's when they were using that January thing. What we agreed was that we will harmonize all these things. That's why we are talking about 31st March. But still, to me, nothing stops you. Is their guideline they are after. An institution like SEC, their guideline was less than 5 pages, about 4 pages. You give them what they want. They are your primary regulators, so to speak. means that these templates must be submitted by 31st March. You know why we did it? And we all agreed, including to give them time, because it's not easy by December. You see some even financial reporting, even when the year ends in December, some are still struggling to get it done, even by June 30th. So what we did was to say, let's allow sufficient time, and sufficient time will be as much as 3 months, which is 31st March, the subsequent year. I think I have answered that question.
Yes, sir, you have. Thank you very much, sir. We have another question here regarding sanctions. So are there sanctions for non-compliance to the provisions of NCCG 2020 or failure to complete and file the NCCG reporting form? Or is it possible that if a person sends it after the reporting time frame, would the person still be sanctioned?
Thank you very much. Whoever asked this question is like you are tempting us from FRC. Like I said at the beginning, or when I started the lecture, especially in the area of guidelines, I told you that the sector regulators, they have the power to sanction you. Because, for example, if I'm a Central Bank of Nigeria, I give you license to operate a bank, and I tell you this is what you do, and you don't want to do it, they can sanction you. But like I said, our code is a principle-based code, and ab initio, we wanted to avoid the controversies, the contentions we had. You remember when the code was first turned out in 2016, and it was suspended immediately by the Honorable Minister at the time. Because a lot of people contended that the penalties and whatever were going to be higher on them, and plus other reasons. So the committee, unfortunately or fortunately, either of the two, I was the secretary of that committee. I was also the secretary of this committee that came out with this code. This committee that came out with this code contended that they do not want controversies again. Therefore, they ceded it to the sector regulators to sanction, even though they will liaise with FRC eventually. So for FRC for now, there is no sanction embedded, but if the sector regulators have the powers to so do. But one would not know what will happen when this code will be reversed. In the next 2-3 years, I'm sure this code will be reversed. And then it can be made penal. It can be penalized by FRC. So let your heart not be troubled. Do what is right. In fact, that was the objective of this committee that fashioned out this code. What they are saying is that the code should be part of our DNA, should be part of our body, so that they'll forget about sanctions. If you do what is right, nobody will come for you for sanctions. It's just like what we do in Nigeria. You see no parking by police order. You see somebody, you will see that signpost. You go and put the car very close to that signpost. But you have been already told no parking. So let us do the right thing. Let's disabuse our minds on sanctions and penalties or fines and do what is right. I think if we get it right, the economy will be better for us and we'll continue to jollificate in the country. Thank you.
Definitely, sir. Thank you so much, sir. We have another question here that says, what's the relationship between the NCCG code and the sectorial guidelines and circulars? Which one takes precedence between the NCCG and the sectorial guidelines?
You see, that language is not good. None takes precedence. The NCCG code is the only code in this country. What sectorial guideline does, like I have said before, is a supplement to NCCG code because it embeds all those things that we are not capable in NCCG, because NCCG code is for general applicability. I give you an example, like in the banks where they have prudential guidelines, for example. We cannot enshrine it in that code because we have various companies that are not banks. Insurance companies also have theirs. So Nikon will do that. So there is no conflict. And I have had people talking about if this one is stricter than this one. There is nothing like that. No one is stricter. And that is why even in the fashioning out of the code, every member of those sectors were there. Those things that were harmonized. If you say that a company must have a director, there is no need SEC or CBN putting it in their guideline that a company must have a director. I hope you are getting me right.
Yes, sir.
Good. But then, in terms of number, if you look at our code, we did not specify the number of directors that a company will have, especially that the code is a principle-based code. The CBN can say because of the nature of the business of banks, especially the volatility, the risk, that a bank must have 14 number directors. You must abide by it. So those are the things that sectoral guidelines. So you can see there's no conflict. So what we do is the general application, like every board, every company must have a board, is in the code. But when it comes to number or tenure, it depends on the sectorial guidelines. Okay, I hope I'm clear about what I'm answering.
Yes, sir, sure, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Good.
So, I don't think we have any other questions. So we have come to the end of this webinar today. Thank you so much, sir, for honoring our invitation. It was a very, very enlightening session. Now we have all the tools, all the knowledge to properly file our NCG reporting from going forward. So I don't know if you have any final words for us.
Thank you. My final word is, but in the course of answering some of these questions, I have let it out. Please, let corporate governance be part of our system. Let it be part of our DNA. Let us practice it even in our families, in your children. Let's practice corporate governance from that end. And let's disabuse our minds from penalties. A lot of us travel abroad. We can see if you go there, you pay in line. But here, even entering a bus here or entering a taxi, you see us struggling. You go to the bank, you see us shunting. It's not so. So my final word is, let us go through this code, and whichever sector you are, go through the guidelines and ensure that you follow whatever is put down there. And our desk officers are there to assist you. Call me anytime. A lot of people call me, even when I'm on the motion, I will answer you. Because the idea is not penalty. The idea is, let's do the right thing. And if we do the right thing, the stakeholders will be happy. Every investor, and we will get more businesses and create more employments. And above all, there will be growth and development in the country. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, sir. We've learned so much from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so whilst we're wrapping up on the session today, I'll just share my screen so that we can see our social media. I want us to follow us on our social media handles so that we can have information of the forthcoming webinars and trainings that we have coming up for this year and next year. Just to let you know that the presentation slides will be shared to all participants after this webinar, and we hope that we get feedback from you. We have dropped the feedback link in the chat box, so please let's have feedback on how this webinar went, and we will definitely send our DCSL academic calendar for 2022 to you. You can also check our website for information on the trainings that we have coming up. We appreciate the facilitator once again, Dr. Nelson Anumaka. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. It was very insightful. Please send your email to every questions you have, inquiries, whatever it is regarding our training services. Please send to dcsl@dcsl.com.ng. We look forward to welcoming to other future events. And that's it from us. It's a wrap. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so we can leave, eh?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right.